Good afternoon, everyone. It is September 1st, 2021, and I have a bit of news to share with you. I wanted to share this as quickly as possible because not only will it help those who are reacting to it, I hope, in New York State, I want to encourage them, but also those in other industries and other states who may be experiencing soon the same thing. What I'm talking about is the mandate that has gone out to New York State healthcare workers that they must take the shot or they will suffer consequences. This could even be a testing ground. I don't know. I think a lot of people are watching this to see how far they can push things. And if you're not prepared in your state or in your industry, you're going to want to get prepared. The writing's been on the wall, but I think people in New York State are feeling very unprepared this morning and this afternoon. And so I want to share with you a few thoughts, hopefully of encouragement, also of warning, and let you know, give you an update about actually what's going on. So I got this morning. This is from a nurse. As of September 27th, whoever doesn't have the shot is considered resigning within 7 days' notice. So the way that this is being categorized, if you do not comply with the mandate, it's on you. You are the one resigning, and you're only giving 7 days notice. That's how they're categorizing this. So they're taking that choice away from you, and they're just putting it in this particular box. They're saying, this is what you've done, even if that's not what you're doing. So it's not so much being fired, it's you resigned, and you've only given 7 days notice. And so this will have a lot of consequences, as many of you know who work in the healthcare field. The policy at many places, and I know this, my wife has been in the healthcare field for years. My sister-in-law is in the healthcare field. I have many friends in the healthcare field. This generally holds true if you work for a hospital or a clinic. You have to give them 4 weeks notice, generally, because if you're an essential worker, they can't just have people walking off the job. So it stands true with this particular nurse. If you resign with less than 4 weeks notice, you are blacklisted. You will never be able to work at that hospital or clinic again. And the consequence, if it is categorized as noncompliance, this could very well, and if it's reported to the state, it could very well show up on your nursing license forever, which could basically preclude you from getting a license in another state. So many people think in New York, well, you know what, it's going downhill. I'm just going to move out of the state and I'm going to be a nurse somewhere else. I'll work in the healthcare field in Georgia or something. Well, it may be very difficult for you if you didn't give 4 weeks notice, and now you're forced to. They're writing it up as if you gave 7 days notice, and it's due to noncompliance. You may not get that job in Georgia. You may not be licensed in Georgia. That's the problem. That's the threat. And if you give the 4 weeks, if you give that month's notice, then you get all your benefits. So this is forcing people to resign. And a lot of people feel very alone. They feel like it is them versus an all-powerful state, and the mandates of that state, and then the institution they work at. And standing alone is very daunting and difficult. And I'm not personally judging or blaming anyone who decides to give that 4 weeks notice, but as far as I know, and according to this, when this announcement went out, the nurses who got it were only given about 24 hours before that 4 weeks would be, you would be within that 4 weeks. And so if you want to keep those benefits, if you want to try to avoid the consequences that would come with only giving 7 days notice and being written up as resigning because of noncompliance, then you would have had to make a decision within a day as to whether or not you would resign. That's what's going on. I think we're past that point at this point. So this has happened fast. The pressure is just insurmountable. There are no exceptions. No religious exemptions even are permitted with this policy. And that's where we are in New York State. And it happened very quick, and nurses are very frightened. Even ones who got the shot are very frightened because they're looking at this precedent and they're looking at the bully tactics. And I had a few thoughts, some biblical and some just historical. I'll start with historical. In my own study of post-industrial revolution, totalitarian regimes, this is what they always do, pretty much. I was actually just recently reading a biography of Mao Zedong, which was excellent. And they turn people against each other. They isolate them so they feel alone. And that's what's happened for the last few years. We've had the Me Too movement, the social justice BLM movement. We've had now the disagreements over various reactions and policy concerning the COVID issue. And this has all been politicized. This has all been managed to some extent. This has all been funded by left-wing sources. And the result has been, I think, one of the intended results from the beginning. People are divided against one another. And they've not only been divided, but they've been cooped up in their house. I know of even churches that I would consider to be theologically generally solid that still don't do Bible studies because of COVID. People are not interacting with each other still the way they were about a year and a half ago. And it's had a permanent impact now on the society we live in. You form habits within a few weeks, and this has been a year and a half. And so people are getting used to being alone and isolated. And now tyranny is coming, and they're standing alone, and that's how they feel. So that is not an accident. I think this is by design. And I think the first step is knowing what's happening to you, knowing what's happening around you, so that you're not, this doesn't take you by surprise, that this is something that's happened before. It's happened all across the world, dividing people and isolating people so that they don't have the strength to stand on their own against an all-powerful government. So that's number one. Number two, I had a thought about the early union movements and how they were somewhat organic, somewhat, yes, I understand. There's a lot of socialism and outside influence with the early union movements, but I want to think from the bottom up for a moment here. People who wanted to change policy or prevent policy from taking effect or whatever, they wanted some kind of change in their places of employment, and they formed unions. There was discontent among the workers, whether that was stirred up or whether there was legitimate discontent. They got together, they formed a block, and basically the point was, if you fire one of us, if you don't change a certain policy, then we're all leaving, and you're going to be up a river. And that's really what needs to happen here. And I realize, yes, there's unions already in place, but today the unions they're not very bottom up. They're very top down, and they're just as corrupt as many of the corporations that they're supposedly supposed to be standing against and shielding people from. So now it is up to, in New York State, nurses and healthcare workers to stand together. And I'm not a nurse. I'm not a healthcare worker as I'm recording this, but I was at a rally earlier this week. I know that there is some loose organizational resistance in place, and that just a lot more time and effort needs to be put into this, in my opinion. And I would never counsel someone. Don't take this as an individual counsel to make sure that your nursing license is marred forever. But everyone's got to make their own decision on this. But from a macro standpoint, looking at this from a bird's eye view, the only thing that I can see that would change this, short of a miracle, is people standing together and a large enough block saying that. And this includes people who maybe even got the shot, but saying, you know what, I don't like this policy, and I could see where this will lead, and standing together and saying, on a certain date, you have an ultimatum. We are going to leave. We are going to go on strike. And I realize there's a number of consequences. I understand that. I realize even with the union, you could get in big trouble. But without some kind of encouragement and leadership, people getting together, feeding off one another, encouraging one another, and without strong leadership, confidence, I don't see how this is going to be rectified. And it will, I believe, spread to other states and other industries. And so if you're someone with that kind of platform and you happen to be hearing this video, that would be my encouragement, is form those channels. Get involved with people in your community. In fact, I'm going to be calling later today someone to see if we can get maybe local pastors to just not only preach the gospel, but to preach against the religion of totalitarian government, which is what is starting to happen. And I'm going to explain that in another video, what I mean by that. But suffice it to say, people who treat the government like God and ascribe to it attributes of deity, that's what's happening. And so do what you can, where you can, if you can. And that's my main encouragement here. There's a lot of examples in Scripture of people standing together biblically. Sometimes the consequences may even look very dire. I mean, you think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? They would not bow. And we are facing a situation that's not parallel in every way, but there is a force that wants people to bow to government and bow to a totalitarian regime that that requires you to make sacrifices, and that basically wants people to think that it has the attributes of deity, perfection, and it's inerrant, and it's got a pure as the driven snow goodness, and these kinds of things. I'll expand on this more in another video, but all that to say, we have that moment right before us. And they wouldn't bend, they wouldn't bow, they wouldn't burn, as an old song goes, and that's what needs to happen in this situation. And look, I believe, if you're a believer, you have God's promises that He's going to provide for you if you seek first His kingdom and righteousness. And there are other industries you can work in. There are other places you can move. There will always be options. In fact, right now, maybe this will encourage you a little bit. I've been traveling quite a bit, and in Alaska and California, there are massive shortages of labor, and I think that holds true for the rest of the country. And I actually know that in New York, to some extent, this is also the case. There are so many people that are collecting unemployment and content to do that industries are having a hard time hiring people. So there are a lot of open jobs right now, and I know most people who went through an education in the healthcare field, they don't want to switch careers. But right now, this is a time when you could do that. So I just want to encourage everyone, you're going to be okay. And I don't know what it looks like, and that's a scary thing, and I get that. I've been there myself before, where I've lost a job, and I don't know how am I going to pay my bills? But the Lord's always come through. So I'd encourage everyone, have the courage to stand. The government is not God. And what they're doing is absolutely wrong. There is no doubt about that this is wrong. So that's my encouragement. Get out there, do what you can. God bless. Bye now.